This is AHMED for IFL Team in association with MTK Global. USYK-CHISORA is official. It's a brilliant fight, Adam. You know, Chisora's been around the heavyweight division for so long, so it's a good marker to see where Usyk's going to operate at heavyweight, because we don't really know from the first fight what he's going to be like. But yeah, it's a great fight.
It's a fascinating battle, isn't it, Umar? It really is. It's another of the really good events that have been put together, and you know, the boxing world is. I mean, we're just getting great matches, and I think that Alexander Usyk, we know, was a phenomenal cruiserweight. You know, the best, cleaned up. But his amateur success was at heavyweight. We always knew he'd move into the heavyweight division after the Tony Bellew victory. He dipped his toes into it. There was mixed reaction to that and how he dealt with Witherspoon, but you know, bigger tests are ahead. He's obviously mandatory for Joshua's title, and I think, you know, this is the perfect stepping stone that he would see. You know, a hardened, you know, rejuvenated Derek Chisora, who in many ways Alexander Usyk will believe he has to pass through to get to Joshua. But we all know with stepping stones, you're overlooking a little bit what actually what might map out. And I think that Derek Chisora, we know on his day now, even at the ripe old age of 36 or whatever he is, and having had the career he's had, the Indian summer's been phenomenal. He's been, you know, given a new lease of life under David Haye and Ruben Tabarez, and they've got him absolutely flying the fittest he's ever. So they'll really fancy their chances of a big upset here, because, you know, his size, his strength, we don't know about Usyk's power yet at heavyweight. And, you know, their tactics are going to be pretty obvious. They're going to be all over him for the first few rounds and see if he can handle, you know, a real, true, genuine heavyweight who's desperate to win. I mean, skill-wise, Alexander Usyk, you know, should be able to outbox Derek Chisora. We know that, but it's not always about that. And I think we'll find out in the ring where, you know, Chisora's strength and heart and willpower might just give Usyk a lot of trouble. But we just don't know. It is one of those that's a really compelling fight, because, you know, you feel Usyk will have the skill set, but you just can't write off Chisora. And at heavyweight, he's still untested, Usyk.
Some have criticised this, saying it is a mismatch that Usyk should breeze through him. But the fact that we have a spoon fight, Usyk didn't look $1 million. We know he's been undisputed cruiserweight champ, but to go straight into a Joshua fight or a Wilder or a Fury would be too soon for Usyk at this point, wouldn't it?
I totally agree, and I see why some people think that. You know, on paper, you could say Alexander Usyk, with all his brilliant skills, his southpaw quality, the way he took apart, you know, fantastic fighters, you know, Bradis, Hook, loads of people during that cruiserweight reign, you know, undisputed champion, you know, and knocked out Bellew in stunning fashion. And, you know, you can see, on paper, yeah, Derek's got, 9 defeats, and it might seem easy work for Alexander Usyk, but we don't know about him as a heavyweight. That's the key. You know, the longer this fight's taken, you know, I know Derek's wanted this earlier in the year, and the longer it's taken, and obviously with the coronavirus at the moment, and, you know, and everything's sort of up in the air, you know, the longer this fight takes to happen, and obviously we hope May 23rd it will happen at the O2 and everything will go ahead, but the longer it takes, the more Alexander Usyk's going to be, you know, feeling more comfortable and more natural at heavyweight. You'd have thought, you know, people like David Haye and Evander Holyfield took time to build up to heavyweight, and I think that, yeah, on paper you could say that, but he was against Witherspoon, you know, people thought, hang on, is he really going to make this at heavyweight? So yeah, I can see that argument, but I can also see the feeling in the Chisora camp that this might be the right fight at the right time, because, you know, before Usyk gets, you know, bigger and stronger at heavyweight, you know, is he going to be able to take care of a sort of rampaging Derek Chisora? As in with Derek, we don't quite know what Derek's going to turn up, but if the right, fit, focused and dedicated Chisora will turn up, which I think will happen under David and Ruben and the gang, I think it's going to be a very interesting fight. Certainly first 4 or 5 rounds, if Chisora really roughs him up and gives him trouble, is Usyk going to be able to, you know, to nitpick his way out of it? Or will Usyk outbox Derek at range and you know, do a number on him? And which, if he does, he's then ready for Joshua and Fury.
Well, it's a fantastic schedule we've got of heavyweight boxing. Dubois Joyce, White Povetkin, Usyk-Chisora, Joshua Pulev, and of course the third fight between Wilder and Fury.
Yeah.
However, as boxing fans and the public, we are not sure if any of them take place. What have you heard about this so far, Adam, in terms of the Sky shows?
Yeah, it's not necessarily what I've heard about. It's everybody, day to day is listening to advice. And I think that, the government have spoken yesterday. They had a COBRA meeting. We know on the back of that, more and more people are being tested positive with the coronavirus, and some high-profile names, in the football world. All Premier League games have now been postponed until, I think it's April the 3rd. So, it's tennis made that decision, was it yesterday, for 6 weeks of no more, and Grand Prix and golf, and everybody seems to be following suit. And, I've had a long chat with Eddie, and I think that, obviously the most important thing is the health of everybody, of the people, of the fighters, of the fans. And I think, we'll be following all the guidelines. The British board will be following our promoters, our partners, Matchroom, and their decisions on sort of, we're speaking daily with them. And I think, again, we'll wait for the governments. At the moment, they're saying that the events can go on. The Premier League have taken, their decision, and many other governing bodies have taken their decision. I think boxing's a bit different because, there's different promoters. There's obviously the British board, but there's different sanctioning bodies. There's more complications, as we all know in the boxing world anyway, but more complications. But I think the most important thing is that obviously, forget boxing and really forget sport. We're all sports fans, we're all boxing fans, we all want everything to go on. The most important thing is people's health, and we've got to listen to guidelines, and the right decisions will be made at as and when. But as far as we're concerned at the moment, it's business as usual, and the press conference goes ahead here, and we announced it for May the 23rd, and we're very, very excited about it. If things get put back, they get put back, and it will be the right decision will be made for the safety of everyone concerned, and I think that's the most important thing. And we all want these big fights. As you said, some great fights have happened already with Fury Wilder, and we've got the White Povetkin fight, we've got Dubois Joyce, we've got loads of heavyweight fights coming up. Obviously, Joshua and Pulev in June. Is that far enough away, or will the crisis become more problematic in the coming weeks? We just don't know. Government are taking medical advice. We're listening to them, and we all have to protect our families and our relatives, and we'll do what we can. And I think that as far as the word on the boxing is that it's difficult because they're sort of individual events, and I think we take it one step at a time. But it wouldn't surprise me if things are hugely affected over the next few weeks. But at the same time, we listen to the government, and we listen to the board, and I listen to the promoters, and it's Matchroom's show. We're the broadcaster, so we keep close with them. And but yeah, the most important thing is the health and safety of everybody, and that will be taken into consideration at every level, I'm sure, and the right decisions will be made. And if things get postponed and events get delayed, then we'll look to do them as and when things calm down, in the summer or whatever. But as I said, we're all here today. It's business as usual for the moment.
It is difficult for you and Eddie to give answers on this because this is something above what you guys can discuss. You have to listen to what the government say. And we saw with a top-ranked show with Shakur Stevenson and Michael Conlan, they said it's going to go ahead behind closed doors, and now they've called it off completely. So things are going to change every day, aren't they?
I think that's exactly right. I thought yesterday at the COBRA committee, we were hearing, as I was dropping my kids off at school, that schools might be closed from next week, and they're not. So, does that give, more of a hope for events in the next 2 or 3 weeks, public events, or is everyone going to say, look, we shouldn't have any public events, and where do you draw the line? Is there a number? Is there 100, 500? What's the number? We know I'm a big Liverpool fan. I'm hoping that after 30 years we still win the league, but there's more important things, and it's the health, and and we know that that people are being hugely affected in countries globally by this. It's a massive problem, and I think as Jurgen Klopp said, don't ask me, ask the experts. It's the experts who are going to tell you, and we've got to listen to the scientists, we've got to listen to the government who are getting their advice, and it's up to everybody to take that advice and utilise it in the right way. And as I said, the most important thing is the safety and health of people. But just coming in on the trains and tubes today, you can see it's not a deserted city, but it is quieter, and I think that people are probably taking their own decisions on how they want to maybe self-isolate or be with their families or move into away from the cities or whatever they want to do, because people are taking that into their own hands on the advice they're listening to. And will that affect people wanting to come to a boxing event? Say there's March the 28th at the O2. Would that even go ahead? I don't know at the moment. There's no advice, I don't think, that Match will be given to say that it shouldn't, but you're looking at everything else and the wave of sports that are saying, look, we're postponing, we're cancelling, we're whatever, some behind closed doors still. It's obviously going to affect everybody, and boxing is just one little thing in a whole world of sport and in a whole world beyond that. So if sports is going to suffer for the next 3 or 4 months, then that's what's going to happen, and it's much more important the health and welfare of everybody's families.
You're right, it's going to affect everyone worldwide, and businesses are going to take huge hits. You do have to especially feel sorry for fighters, because we know how important fight dates are in fighters' minds. So the fact that these guys are going to turn up and they're actually not sure whether they're going to be fighting on May 23rd, they might sit here and say it's not affecting them, but it's got to be playing on their minds.
Really hard, really difficult. With football teams or cricket teams, there's a team of them, right? Okay, and if some have the virus and they self-isolate and whatever, and then there may be others available, they might get through it and they'll be fine in a couple of weeks. And there may be I think, as I said, the football's been postponed till April the 3rd. Maybe they'll make a decision then to postpone it more. Maybe they'll come back, and if they come back there, it's a football team. They have a huge squad. They can play 11 players. But with boxing and more individual sports, especially, with tennis, they play week in, week out on a regular basis, from tournament to tournament. With boxing, we know they fight maybe 2, 3, 4 times a year. It is all about dates. It's all about peaking at the right time, and it must be really, really hard. And it's almost like you almost think, well, maybe call the event off if you think it's not going to happen, because fighters going to get ready. But ultimately, it is, if you can have some of them still go ahead, then that will be taken on individual cases. I think Frank Warren said that the Dubois-Joyce fight will go ahead, and I can't sit here and say it will or won't. It's not my promotion. We're not broadcasting it, but it's difficult, because if everything else is being cancelled around, is it up to the British board to come out and say, look, we can't get maybe it's down to the medical side. We can't get our doctors, our paramedics there. We've got to push them to other things, and then that will force the postponements, or they won't be cancelled. They'll be postponed. I think a lot of these events, but that's what we've got to listen to. And yeah, I do feel for the fighters. It's an individual sport. Obviously they get paid when they fight, and for the big fights like this, to prepare yourself, and then in 3 or 4 weeks' time, sort of be told, it may be June or July. It is hard, but that is part of the uncertainty of being a boxer. Sometimes things are changed. Sometimes they are pulled from cards. Sometimes they have to be fit and ready at most times. But the other thing is they could get ill. And the most important thing is that as many people as possible are healthy and happy and get through this crisis, because that's what it is. Everybody's talking about it, and it's a case of we just have to get through it, weather the storm, and hopefully it will pass and we'll move on. But at the moment, it shouldn't be boxing people are talking about, or even sport. It should be the health and livelihood and welfares of people's loved ones, because that's all that matters at the end of the day.
That is true. But in terms of other sports, especially with football, a fixture can just get rearranged. Whereas something like Canelo Billy Joe Saunders, Billy's been waiting 5 years for a shot at Canelo Golovkin. We know May 2nd is that date now. But say that gets scrapped, Canelo fights next in September, which is rumoured to be a Golovkin trilogy. Billy might lose that fight, totally.
Absolutely, it might happen. That is the problem. But as I said, it's not, and you've got to feel for the fighters. Of course you do. But as I said, the most important thing is that people get through this crisis worldwide, globally. Businesses are being affected left, right, and centre here, and it's going to be really hard for a lot of people. But the most important thing is that people get through, and people are healthy and survive, and that's really all that matters. May the 2nd might be called off. They're calling off fights in America. There's April as well with Luke Campbell's shot over there, and all sorts of stuff happening. It's every fighter's got a day to work towards, and it's unfortunate that Billy Joe might miss out if that's cancelled, but opportunities will arise later in the year in other ways, and fighters just have to keep persistent and they're going through this with everybody else in the world. That it's a bit like the next 3 or 4 months are going to be very, very difficult globally, and we're all going to have to deal with it as best we can, and prioritise what the governments are saying, what the advice is here, what the advice is in the States, what the advice is around the rest of the world. What's going to happen with travel, what's going to happen with getting sportsmen and women across the world, all that sort of stuff. There's so much to and what about Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano training in America? May the 2nd, when are they going to come over? There's all those sort of things. But I think the key is that we're looking at it on this level. We're sad that the fights may or may not happen and the fighters might be affected, but we should be thinking about it at a slightly higher level, which is the fact that health is wealth. Health is the most important thing, and what we want to do is make sure that as many people are healthy through these next few months, and that this horrible virus, this pandemic, does pass. And it's a day-by-day thing at the minute. You can't go anywhere without everybody talking about it, without it being on every news thread, and rightfully so. It's we've had other things in our lifetimes that have been tricky, or they've been difficult to assess and work out. This is massive, and who knows how big this is going to get, and if not already. So it's this at the moment. And there is Mr. Usyk. He's guarded up. That's absolutely right. Wearing his mask. The fighters can't. If the fighters catch the virus, then they're doing everything else, self-isolating, etc. So they might be pulling out, as well as events being cancelled or postponed. So it's difficult, but I think at the moment we're here. Let's get this press conference announced. It's a great fight. It will happen, hopefully May 23rd. So let's move ahead, and let's do all we can while we can. And as I said, listen to every advice. But my main concern is for all the people involved in boxing is that we keep everything as healthy as possible for everybody, fighters, fans, you guys, everyone.
Just lastly, Adam, if Joshua Pulev and Wilder Fury 3 go ahead as planned, do you expect that undisputed fight, if Joshua and Fury both come through, to happen this year, Adam?
I do expect it. I'm not sure whether it will happen this year, and what with the coronavirus, that may delay things even further. But I do expect the Fury AJ fight to happen at some point. Yes, I do. I think if they both come through, I think if Tyson beats Wilder, as most people expect him to do in the trilogy, maybe that will be put back to the autumn now. That's possible. And Joshua Pulev, if that happens in June or elsewhere, at the moment, sure, June, you could just about possibly squeeze it into December, or it might be early next year. But yeah, I do expect that to happen, and I think it'll be the biggest fight ever when it does. So yeah, fingers crossed. And let's take it at a time. At the moment, let's announce this. This is a great fight, and fingers and toes crossed we get things back to normal as quickly as possible. But health's got to come first.
Adam Smith, thank you very much for your time.
No problem at all.
Cheers, Adam. Thanks.